Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in for the heart-wrenching premiere of There Was a Killing and joining us for the live Q&A panel. I'm Varun Virlan, coordinator of digital media operations at Animal Save Movement and organizer of the Toronto-based Justice for Reagan Russell campaign, and I will be your host today. Before I introduce our special guest, I'd like to say how deeply encouraged I am to see people from all over the world uniting and coming together to learn about Reagan and the sickening injustice of her violent death. Reagan once described herself as a mere pebble on the road to freedom. So poignant. She's so much more. She will never know the legacy of love and compassion she has left behind, or the actions she inspired. But we will continue to rise up for Reagan. We will not be silenced. We will continue to speak out against injustice in our fight for animal liberation. And we will always ask ourselves, what would Reagan do? If you have any questions for our panel, please comment them down below while I introduce our very special guests. Joining us is the multi-award winning director and producer, Shaun Monson. Shaun is best known as the writer and director of the documentaries Earthlings and Unity, and co-producer of Dominion. Recently, he produced and directed 2 short films, Guardians of Life and Liberty, both starring longtime collaborator and Academy Award winner Joaquin Phoenix. Lisa Bloom, founder of one of the largest civil rights firms in the US, the Bloom Firm. Lisa is best known for fighting for ordinary people seeking justice, particularly victims of sexual harassment and assault, domestic violence, LGBTQIA discrimination, racial bias, and excessive police force. Amy Jean Davis. Amy has been vegan for 18 years and is the founder and organizer of one of Animal Save Movement's biggest chapters, Los Angeles Animal Save. She is also a part of Love Always Sanctuary, a farm animal sanctuary based in California. She works for her partner, Shaun Monson, the filmmaker behind tonight's documentary, as well as Earthlings and Unity documentaries. Ingrid NewKirk, founder and president of PETA, one of the largest animal rights organizations in the world, who marked their 40th anniversary this year. Along with their 6.5 million members and supporters, they oppose speciesism and a human supremacist worldview, focusing their attention on education, cruelty investigations, animal rescue, legislation, and hard-hitting protest campaigns. So now let's get back to the questions. So here we are in the comments. Let's check out this comment from Rossi Sassano. He asked, I understood that the police were holding on to security footage that shows the entire thing. Were they unwilling to release that footage to anyone?
Actually, I'll defer to Lisa on this to see if she has any insight, but we did try to obtain that footage as well as traffic cam footage over the intersection, but we were not successful. Lisa, do you think there might be any insight you could have as to why they wouldn't make that available? I guess if there's no criminal charge, there's no reason for them to provide that footage to the public. Oh.
Okay, hi.
Now I can hear you. Thanks, Lisa. That's all right.
I'm in moving RV, so forgive me. I couldn't hear all of the question. It was about some footage being available.
Yeah, the footage from the slaughterhouse has not been made available to the public yet, and will only be made available if a lawsuit is brought forward. I thought you might have some input on that.
Yeah, I mean, that's just so aggravating, and why there isn't more transparency and why footage isn't available just to the people when law enforcement has it is a constant issue.
You're
Frozen.
yeah, you got frozen, Lisa. So I'll move on to another question. We'll get back to this one once it gets better. So the next question is from Leah. It says, what's the next step? So yeah.
The family, again, the family is, there's no criminal charges. So the family will have to bring a civil lawsuit next. And that is the legal process. And perhaps in discovery of the civil lawsuit, they may find some activities that are considered criminal. But as of yet, a civil proceeding would have to be next.
And then in discovery, hopefully, they'll be able to get that footage that we all want to see. And any notes that the police have in talking to the driver. And so I think as with the O.J. Simpson case, the civil suit usually brings out more if you've got a reticent police department or prosecutor. So there's hope there. I think the question really is, what do we all do meanwhile? Because there's a lot to be done.
Yeah. Stop eating animals, of course, is the one thing you can do today.
And get other people to stop eating animals. I always say it's not enough to stop yourself. You've just got to, as Jane Velez Mitchell says, take somebody else to the vigil, take somebody to the sanctuary, make them watch the film, take them food, do something to spread this movement bigger than just it's you and me and other people we know.
That's right. That's right.
Exactly. It's really important to see the victim, to see the survivors at the sanctuaries, to help make the connection. So more and more people take action and get active. That's what we need to bring change. So next question is from Gwenna Hunter, and it is for Amy Jean Davis. How are you feeling? I can tell you're still deeply moved.
Thank you, Gwenna. I'm thinking, what can we do collectively to put pressure on the Ontario government to repeal this law, this Bill 156 that's been turned into law for the safety of animal rights activists, and to shed light on this egregious legislature that Animal Ag was behind writing. So I'm trying to think about the next steps and not think about Reagan and the tragedy and the pigs that were on that truck that killed her, that were just sent down the slaughter line as well. And they didn't even stop. It was just business as usual. So try not to think about that and thinking about what actions we can all take.
Thank you so much, Amy. So just to give a little background, the day Reagan was killed, Toronto Pig Save requested the release of some pigs to a sanctuary. The slaughterhouse did not allow it. They let all the pigs who were in that transport truck transferred to another truck, and they were all sent to slaughter. So this is not that was not the first time. Fearmans has done that so many times. So the next question is from Shay Holland. How hard was it emotionally to make, as it was emotionally hard to watch? So Shaun?
Well, I think what was interesting when Anita first called and asked if I'd take a look at this, they sent me some footage and it was about 4 minutes. That was all the footage from the day, about 4 minutes. And since it was all cell phone footage from the activists who were there, many of them were at the trucks filming the pigs inside, and they were sharing that on their social media. So half of that 4 minutes was footage of the pigs inside. So I felt a little bit like I had just 2 minutes of, it's almost like looking at the Zapruder film from the JFK assassination, where there's 15 seconds here and there's 15 seconds there. But the first thing that struck me when I looked at it was her sprayer, how far her sprayer was from where her body was. And it sort of nagged at me that How can a person be at a stop, at a light, big truck, low gears, even if he's trying to come in fast, he really can't get up to that kind of speed. Hang on a second. I think we just got joined by Robert. That's my dad, by the way. He's an attorney and he's in the film. Hey, Robert, can you hear us? I can see him down there.
Hi,
Can
Robert.
you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good.
So anyway, just to finish the question from before, it was piecing that footage together, and of course the horrific footage of her body that I thought, when there was no criminal charges brought against the driver and the bill had just been passed, it felt to me almost like an investigation. And of course it was emotional. It's horrific. Such a sweet, sweet activist protesting, which is her right. And all the emotion that come from other people that you see in the film that attack the protesters, not just truckers, but bystanders going by. So yeah, it was difficult, but I keep making these difficult documentaries, but I just can't help myself because I want people to see what's happening and shine a light on it. And so I'm always grateful for the opportunity and hope it has a positive effect.
Thank you so much. So before we begin, I would like to introduce Robert Monson. He has over 50 years legal experience in civil and appellate practice. Mr. Monson is a graduate of the University of West Los Angeles School of Law. Mr. Monson authored the California Business and Development Act. In retirement, he runs an attorney outsource practice. So I'll go over to the next question. It is from Leo Wolf. They say, hello, thank you for this documentary. It is hard to continue, keep fighting after this horrible killing. What would you say to activists to help them keep faith and strength? Hugs from Valparaiso, Animal Safe, Chile.
Ingrid, that's for Ingrid.
Well, the old woman here has been at it for many a year. And I think it's wonderful to look back and see that persistence pays. And for those people who haven't been at it so long may not realize all the fantastic gains that have been made. Yes, there have been setbacks like this wretched law in Canada, but if you don't keep going, then you won't get any more successes. So it's up to us. We've got to take personal responsibility. I think each one of us is very, very precious to this movement. If we care, if we understand, if we see what's going on, and we do, and if our heart breaks, it may be hard on us, but really, we have got to have the stamina to decide that every single day we're going to carry on, because if we don't, everything is lost. I don't know if you can hear, but outside my window, I'm in Washington, D.C., there are horns going off because people are driving down the street so excited that Biden has won. And let's see if he holds on to it. But people did not think this could happen. And they marched and they educated others and they went door to door. Our movement is just the same. There will be so many opportunities lost if we can't look, if we turn away, if we just allow depression to take over. And we need to turn that sadness into activism. And I know it sounds as if, oh, these are just words. They're not just words. I cry a lot and I see a lot of hideous footage, and it's not easy. But I believe that we all have to have some way that we fortify ourselves. We look at the bright side of things, not in a Julie Andrews way, but because we know if we persevere, we will get somewhere. And so I think we have to look after each other. I mean, losing Reagan, we've also lost 2 other wonderful activists in the last 3 months to suicide. That, we've got to be kind to each other and fortify each other and hold each other up and go out with each other to do things if we can. If not, then it's up to us. And I say the smallest thing that you can do, just taking the vegan starter kits and putting them in the supermarket magazine racks, coming across the scooters on the street and putting a Go Vegan sticker on it, or something to do with pigs or other animals, talking it up and feeding people. I could go on forever, but I won't. But opportunities are endless, and we have got to be strong and seize them and make this movement work.
Thank you so much, Ingrid. I totally agree. Mm-hmm. So next question, it's not actually a question, it's a comment from Robert Welch. And they say, not a question, just want to say that I'm completely blown away by this documentary. It's amazing what you were able to put together. I totally agree.
I'd like to just say something, and I'll bring in actually my dad for this, but when I first looked at the footage, because I grew up with a lawyer as a father, and I asked him if he'd take a look at it. And one of the first things he commented on is that they would try to put the blame back on the activists. Hey, Dad, can you chime in on that point, how you anticipated right away that they would begin to take the blame off of the driver and immediately put it on the activists who have a right to protest? That was one of his first comments.
Yes, given the fact that they'd already introduced legislation, so we know that there were counter forces behind pushing that type of legislation. So we're dealing somewhat in the political area. It's unfortunate, but it happens in law. We saw this when it first happened, when the police initially looked at it and said, this is a crime. Then we see be somewhat similar to our attorney general or district attorney to look at it and say, well, maybe we don't have the evidence. But when I look at the documentary and I look at the witnesses that testified, and the veridical facts are that these people, firsthand percipient witnesses, could testify, and they said there was a pause by the driver, and then he suddenly speeded up. He gunned the truck, and so we get into some tough questions. Maybe the criminal side of it will come back out after the investigation is done. But initially looking at it, it borders on certainly gross or willful actions that lend themselves, because we can begin to, maybe we can't say that the driver had the intent to kill. He may not have, but he did have the intent to gun the engine, and you are responsible for all the consequences of your act. And from those consequences, we may be able to, maybe the law enforcement will look at it again and say that we can infer the intent from his actions.
Thank you so much, Robert. I have actually a follow-up question regarding ag-gag laws by Peter, and I think you would be great to answer this one. So the question is from Peter Cunnington. They ask, how can we stop more ag-gag laws across Canada?
It's still, I think Ingrid, again, would probably have the best insight on this, since you've been fighting these for longer than all of us. What do you think, Ingrid?
Well, I'm not up on Canadian law. I do know that somebody is trying to overturn this, and there was legal action to try to stop it. In the United States, we have succeeded in overturning some of these ag-gag laws. We've defeated 19 of them. And the reason that we did it, I think, was sheer political will on the ground of actually physically lobbying and getting all our members, friends, family, everybody to bombard politicians with emails, make actual calls to them, and say, you can't do this, you've got to vote against this. Finding people who've donated to the candidates because it's a dirty system. Finding people who've donated but care about animals to weigh in on the right side. Once the law is passed, I'm sure it's extremely hard to undo, but that's not to say it can't be undone. I do believe that many of us need to be more politically savvy, and to organize politically. In the 1980s, when the earth was first cooling, there were political animal rights action groups, and they seem to have disappeared in the main. And I would urge anybody with any political savvy to start perhaps putting them together again in a very good way.
Thank you so much, Ingrid. So I have another question from Toronto PicSave. And the question is, Reagan was at a vigil when she was killed. Could you all talk about why bearing witness is such a powerful form of activism and your personal experiences?
Amy.
Amy?
When you come to a vigil, it is, for most people, one of the only times that you actually get to be in the same physical space as these victims. So you're there, you can smell them, they can smell you, you can see each other, you can hear them, you can hear the sounds that they make, you can see where their eyes are looking, you can see their bodies shake, you can see the wounds on their body, you can see the vomit, the feces, the urine, the blood, and you can really begin to see what their experience may be like because you're so close to it. It really doesn't matter that these animals are just moments away from their death. In fact, it does matter. It means that the fact that that is happening to them in just moments, somebody needs to be there to say, I see you, I witness you. And it inspires people to get active. It's difficult to look at footage. It's difficult to look at photos. It's difficult to hear someone describe what farmed animals go through in their lives. Most of them short, some of them egregiously too long. But it's just an additional, it's more powerful in my opinion to actually be there with the victims and knowing that there's nothing you can do to save them. Sometimes we do get to save them. Very, very few individuals get saved. So that powerlessness catalyzes people into action. And this is why it's so important to bear witness. And it's why it's so important that everybody pay attention, whatever country you live in, to your rights of free speech, to your rights to peacefully protest. Because when they take that away, as they're doing in Ontario, we lose our power to speak up for these victims, to fight for their freedom. So everybody's got to pay attention. That's why this is political. It is political because politics are policy. Policies affect individuals, human or not. And so we need people to get active, and being there with the victims at a vigil is impactful because it inspires people to get active. It did me. It did for me.
100%. So Amy, I would just like to add a follow-up question. The related question is from Janelle Butler. And she says, my daughter is the one who got me to take her to a pig vigil. It's always tough to go, but we know it's necessary. What do you say to people who say vigils aren't an effective form of activism?
Hi, Janelle. Thank you for the question. I would say to those people, you've clearly never been to a vigil. For the vast majority of people who come to vigils, they are impacted. They are, a fire is lit in their heart to be more active for the animals. So this idea, it's really a cop-out for people who aren't ready to be an activist. They're not ready to put their time and their energy and their emotions on the line to fight for others. It's a cop-out to say, oh, vigils aren't impactful or effective because those animals are just going to die anyway. If I was on a truck headed to my death, I would want somebody to see me. And I would want that person to share my story to as many people as possible. And so we're there for the individuals to see them as individuals. And so for people who think it's not effective, go to a vigil. And if after you go to a vigil, you still find it's not effective, then continue and find what activism for you will be most effective, because it's not a good enough excuse for you to just sit and do nothing.
There's also Janelle's daughter. I think it's a wonderful thing that, Janelle, you took your daughter, and maybe she can do a school report, or she can find an opportunity at school to form an animal rights group, or to take the pictures from the vigil and post them up in the school. And it will teach her to have more strength, too, to stand up for what she believes in. But there are other things. One can write an op-ed, a letter to the editor, complain somewhere, and most importantly, of course, talk others out of eating pigs and other animals and feed them so that they know what the other food tastes like, because they often don't. They've never tried it, and they may never unless you give it to them.
Thank you so much, Ingrid and Amy. I have one more. I have this question from Roxanne. Has there been any legislator there to express concern that the new law may have encouraged this killing, having occurred one day after the bill was passed?
It's too bad we don't have Anita on this with us. I know she's in the comments, and maybe it'll be answered in the comments, because I don't have an answer to that. I don't know, but she might have some insight. So we'll have to watch the comments for that one, Varun.
I will say that while not necessarily a legislator, the mayor of Burlington, the city where Reagan was killed, did publicly announce on November 1st that the city of Burlington was recognizing World Vegan Day. So there may be a friend in politics there with the mayor.
Thank you. So Anita did post a comment. Yes, the NDP, New Democratic Party critique for animal agriculture, has warned about the danger of Bill 156, Roxanne. That's good. So yeah, that was, she already answered.
And as we say in the film, just one more thought, as we say in the film, actually Robert talks about it, first impressions. This is the first time that a statute will be tried, when this trial comes forward. And so that will challenge what we would call here the constitutionality of the law. So the statutes and then case law. So it'll be very interesting to see how this case unfolds.
Thank you. So I think Ingrid would be able to answer this one. It's from Vegans of LA. What actions as activists can we take today to push justice for Reagan Russell?
Well, of course, it's more than justice for Reagan Russell. I'm not sure she'll ever get justice. It's to continue her work, to try to fill her shoes. The loss of one activist is a terrible loss because we are all so important. I was faced with this question when it happened. I mean, I've stood exactly there, not where she was standing, but where the other activists have stood there outside that Furman's. And it was the most atrocious thing to do. It does require strength. And so she's one person missing from that now. And this is something she had wanted to make sure stopped, the trucks going through the gate. So I do believe what I've said is that we have to get others to join us. When this happened, I took 20% of my paycheck that week and gave it to feed non-vegans, to give food to people. And I racked my brains. Who can I find? Who do I have a casual acquaintance with? Who do I just have a nod of the head with where I can give food to them? And then we went out to the Midwest of the US, to the pig farming country. And we actually swapped, believe it or not, vegan food for 2 piglets and got them into sanctuary by telling Reagan's story to the farmer and asking him to do something decent. And it was a one-on-one kind of interaction with him. And he agreed to do it. And I think there were other opportunities that came up during the week to do that sort of thing. We made sure to post everywhere, to put pig footage on social, to ask people to forward it to meat-eating, non-vegan people they knew, and ask them as a favor, will you please watch this for me? Because this is a very important time for me, because I, your friend, your relative, am trying to figure out how to make a difference, because this dear woman has left us and she was trying so hard to stop something you, unless you're Attila the Hun, can agree with me on, and that is that cruelty is wrong. Cruelty to animals is illegal and it's wrong. And yet there is this mystical exemption if you do a lot of it in one place at one time. And that's not really how it should be. So I don't know, talking to people, feeding people, using the materials, posting on social media, getting political. I'm wondering, based on the last question, if people have been up to Parliament with pictures of Reagan, with pictures of the pigs, aside from the vital legal role of trying to overturn this wretched law, of confronting politely, but confronting these legislators who voted yes on this law with the pictures or this film, you know, to say this is what happened, getting up there. I don't know if that's happened.
Good point.
Yeah. So Ingrid, in Toronto area, we have been campaigning for Reagan Russell, in which we did become political, and I think it's really important to not looking at this issue as just, you know, someone who was standing and just got killed. Her death is political, and it's really important to remember for like all the viewers that she was killed just a day after Bill 156 was given royal assent. So we should not be afraid of, you know, being political and engaging in political campaigns and then demanding justice.
That's absolutely right. And people do get nervous. You raised a very good point. You know, this is not a country where somebody is going to hang you upside down and tear your fingernails out and electroshock your genitals. I mean, somebody can defeat you and people can say lousy things about you and to you, and there can be a lot of nastiness, but really it's sticks and stones. It ain't going to break your bones if you are out there being political on Parliament Hill, or writing or visiting your member of Parliament. And it's very easy to learn how to do it, the words to say, the things that they pay attention to. So I wouldn't be nervous about any of this. I mean, it's a hideous thing that one man decided, because people are empowered by such things as this bill, that decided that he would either intimidate her or injure her or kill her. But you just think about it, the chances of anything like that happening to others is very slim, and we must not be intimidated in any way by threats of violence or by anything at all that they say they're going to do to us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So we have another comment from Saku K. They say, thanks for making this movie free for everyone. Would you give it to Netflix for free to get the message out? Also, would you release Earthlings on Netflix for free to get the message out?
We'd be happy to give these films away. Believe it or not, streaming services like Netflix don't just take everything. Even if you give it, they are selective with what they. So we will offer this to them. Netflix did have Earthlings on there for a time, for about 3 years, I think. They didn't renew it. We give it to them for free, but streaming services curate projects, so it's not something that we can control. But we can control it by making it free on YouTube and anywhere else in the world. So it's available.
Thank you so much. So this question we have from Monique. They ask, how can we as foreigners support the case and to repeal Bill 156? But also, how can we change this in the world, is there a thing that can be done globally too? Freedom to record, take photos?
That's a big question.
Amy, I think LA Animal Save did some actions for Reagan when she died. Maybe you can go over it. You can explain it.
Yes, we held events at the General Consulate of Canada here in Los Angeles. So that is one thing that for people who have a Canadian consulate, they can gather there and try to reach those people and ask them to get involved in this case, get involved in this fight against Bill 156, which is now law. So again, get involved politically as much as you can, and as much as is safe for you to do so, and wherever you are in the world. Also, join the Save movement, join Animal Save movement, and start attending vigils, hold events, bringing awareness to what happened to Reagan. Just being involved is what Reagan would want of us. It's how we can respect all of the work that she did in her life and how we can continue fighting this fight against big ag. So you can bring awareness in those ways. And if you have additional questions, just reach out to Animal Save Movement and we will help you as best we can. We just need everybody to be active in whatever form suits them best, and especially to get more political, because politics is where the policies are made.
100%.
And, I mean, here we've got the ACLU, and there's the Canadian equivalent, I'm sure, of the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union. And I think it's very important to be part of that, because these are freedom of speech issues. These are civil liberties issues. Animal rights isn't just some separate beast. It's part and parcel of what we should be allowed to say and what we are by rights allowed to do. So I think joining those organizations, and if possible, going to meetings of those organizations and finding attorneys who are part of those organizations to show them that it's not just people of one gender or people of one race. It's against all supremacy. It's against all supremacism. It's against all speciesism. We're all in this together. And, animals may not dial the phone or demand things, but we do on their behalf. And that's our right to be able to do those things. So I think joining civil liberties organizations is also very helpful in spreading the word.
Absolutely. This question is from Emmeline Mansour. They're asking, certain countries in Latin America have justice system way more corrupted than the Canadian one. How would you encourage activism in that area despite this reality?
I got to start somewhere. I mean, Ingrid, when you were first starting, way back with, was it Silver Springs? Was that the very first sort of case that probably couldn't have been more unfashionable, irritating, annoying when you were trying to shine a light on that? And now that PETA's global, I mean, I'm sure you have some suggestions on places that are less open to this and what activists can do there.
I don't have anything brilliant, because I think people are people all over the world. And we've certainly seen enough corruption in Washington that we can't be too looking down our nose at other countries as being morally inconsistent or morally corrupt. But I do believe that as long as you can say something and do something, you should say and do something. And you're right, Shaun, that when we started, and even today, of course, in other ways, but when we started, even the idea that there was something wrong with wearing fur or wanting a fur coat was extraordinary, and that people would scoff at the idea of going vegetarian. We always said vegan from the start, and that was completely puzzling to people. It was just pure persistence, and I think that's true in any country in the world, in any small community. among friends and family. It's pure persistence. You know you're right. You don't have to have anybody's endorsement. You know the difference between right and wrong, and cruelty is cruelty. So you just carry on saying it, doing it, showing, being an example. Someone once said to me, if you could only tone down what you're saying and make it more palatable. And I thought, well, if I told you what you already believed, you would be happy. But what would the point be? I want to give you a new thought. And that new thought often leads to discussion, argument. There's nothing wrong with argument. That's somebody working out in their head whether what you're saying makes sense to them or not. And advertisers say you have to hear something at least 7 times before you change your impressions, your opinions, your habits. So just keep on saying it, keep on doing it, keep on organizing, and be grateful to anyone who does anything, because we need each other. Even if someone gives an hour a day, an hour a week, an hour a month, that's better than them not doing it. So make them feel welcome and thank them for what they're doing. Stick together.
Right.
Thank you so much, Ingrid. And I would like to bring up what Reagan once said. She said, "I don't know if it does any good, but I know doing nothing does no good."
Perfect.
So I'll pick one last question. It's from someone from YouTube. They're asking, do you find that the civil liberties unions are helpful? They have in the UK and here in Canada been noticeably quiet on animal issues.
Hey, Robert, do you want to? Oh, no, Ingrid, you should chime in too.
No,
But
sorry.
I wanted
Since nobody said anything, I was just going to say just a little thing is that we actually, often they won't take cases that we ask them to, but we do go to them all the time if there's a human element especially. And we have had them pick up cases of ours in the US countless times and bring them on our behalf. And that is, say, when somebody has been fired for being a vegan openly in some way, and they've come to us and we've gone and joined with the ACLU and brought the case. So if there's a human element, and in this case, obviously with Reagan, there's a human element. And with all the people whose rights are being thrown out the window, who are being told they can't gather, there's a human element. So I would think that there is a chance that with some persuasion and pushing, that maybe the Canadian civil liberties people might help.
Yeah, in fact, it was Lori, one of the eyewitnesses and the activists who was there, and she says this in the film, that she saw that this was an activist, a protester. We have a right to protest, standing up for something she believes in. She was killed, and she was surprised there wasn't more of a reaction right away from a humanitarian standpoint.
You've got to lobby them, though. You've got to really lobby them. I mean, they're not going to come looking for the case. So I think, and probably her family will push this forward, hopefully, too. They may be too distracted by bringing their own case. But I do believe that if there's a legal leg to stand on with activists being denied their rights, that somebody should petition the ACLU, please, to take this case. Well, not the Canadian civil liberties people to take this case.
And one last thing, Robert, that was something you pointed out too when I showed you the bill. You thought, well, I could see all kinds of issues coming out of this.
I would like to just say, I've been through the judicial process as well as the political process. Unfortunately, the political process is so slow. But the legal process, though more expensive, gets to the heart of the issue immediately. You have to begin getting coalitions together to raise funds. In California, we had an organization called Citizens Legal Defense Alliance, which did nothing but raise funds to attack these types of cases. And as I look at this legislation, I can see tremendous, if it were in the United States, I can see tremendous civil rights issues involved with it. Freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of petition. They're all there, but they need to be tested in the courts. All your legislatures do is pass laws. And then it's the lobbyists that come in with the money that influence them. But if you can get it into the courts and get it processing through the courts, and you can get a court to come down with a decision, now you're beginning to make some headway.
Absolutely agree.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Robert, for sharing your insight. And let's see if there's any last question we can go over. I see lots of comments going. The person who asked the question, they are saying, thanks for that interesting point about going to civil liberty unions. So I guess that's it for today. Thank you so much, Shaun, Robert, Amy, and Ingrid for giving up your time today. You've given us a lot to think about, and we truly value your expertise and insight. All of us coming together to speak about Reagan and this groundbreaking documentary will only help us amplify our calls for justice. And thanks to everyone who joined us with an open heart and open mind. If you would like to help Reagan's story reach new audiences, we will be leaving the film up on YouTube so you can share it with your friends and family. We are also raising funds in honor of Reagan. The money raised will be split between Animal Justice, who will launch a legal challenge against Bill 156, which is now a law, as well as farm animal sanctuaries in Ontario. If you'd like to donate, you can send the money via PayPal to paypal.me/TorontoPigSafe. Thank you all for joining, and thanks again, Shaun, for the excellent documentary.
Thank you.
Thank you.